They told us Africa had no history. They said we had no structure, no cities, no systems. But what if that story was never true? What if, long before Britain arrived, what we now call Nigeria was already home to powerful kingdoms, organized governance, international trade, and global diplomacy? This is not mythology. This is documented history. Before colonialism, there was Benin, there was Oyo, there was Kanem-Borno, and they were not weak. In the forests of what is now southern Nigeria rose one of Africa's most sophisticated civilizations, the Benin Kingdom. At its center stood Benin City, a city well planned, so orderly that when Europeans first entered it in the 15th century, they were stunned. Benin City had wide streets, organized quarters, a royal palace complex, and surrounding it all were massive artworks and walls. Walls so extensive modern historians estimate they were longer than the Great Wall of China. This was not a village. This was an empire. Benin was ruled by the Oba, a sacred king, supported by a complex court system. There were chiefs, guards, administrative hierarchies. Nothing happened by accident. Power was centralized, but governance was structured. Then there was art, bronze heads, brass plaques, ivory carvings, created using advanced lost wax casting techniques. These were not crude objects. They were required mathematics, metallurgy, generational skill. Europe did not teach Benin how to do this. Benin mastered it centuries earlier. Benin traded with Portugal as early as the 1400s. Pepper, ivory, artworks. Benin sent ambassadors to Europe. European traders bowed before the Oba. This was diplomacy between equals. Move westward and you encounter a different kind of power, the Oyo Empire. Oyo was not a forest kingdom. It was a savanna empire, and its strength came from speed, organization, and Oyo political system. At the top was the Alaafin of Oyo, the emperor. But here is what made Oyo remarkable. The Alaafin was not absolute. It was checked by council, the Oyo Mercy. If an Alaafin ruled badly, he could be removed. This was a system of political balance long before modern democracy reached Africa. Oyo's cavalry dominated West Africa. Trained horsemen, iron weapons, organized command. From the Niger River to the Atlantic coast, Oyo controlled trade routes and territories. This was not chaos. This was strategy. Oyo cities were commercial hubs. Markets burst with activities. Clothes, kola nuts, livestock, metal goods. Trade connected Oyo to Dahomey, to the coast, to inland Africa. An empire does not survive on force alone. It survives on structure. Now, travel north to the edge of the Sahara, near Lake Chad. Here stood one of the longest lasting empires in human history, Kanem-Borno. This empire lasted over 1,000 years. Let that sink in. Kanem-Borno was ruled by the mayor, a king whose authority blended politics, religion, and law. Islam shaped governance, but African traditions remained strong. There were courts, tax systems, provincial rulers. This was a state, not a tribe. Kanem sat at the heart of trans-Sahara trade. Camel caravans moved across the desert. Gold, salt, leather, textiles. The empire traded with North Africa and Middle East and beyond. Africa was not isolated. Africa was connected. Arabic manuscripts were written and preserved. Kings exchanged letters with Islamic scholars. Mosques and learning centers stood in cities like Benin, Gazar, Gamoon. Knowledge lived here. Then, Europe arrived with guns. In 1897, British forces invaded Benin City. They burned the palace, exiled the Oba, and looted thousands of artworks, Benin bronzes, ivory masks, royal altars. These objects were shipped to museums in London, Berlin, and Paris. They were labeled artifacts, but they were stolen history. Over a century later, some are coming back. Germany, the United Kingdom, and other European institutions returning what they once said had no value. You don't return what had no civilization behind it. In conclusion, Africa had cities before Europe called us primitive. Africa had laws before Europe called us lawless. Africa had global trade before Europe claimed discovery. Benin, Oyo, Kanem Borno, these were not accidents of history. They were proof of structure. This is not about pride. This is about truth. Because a people who forget their history will always be told lies about their past. This is one chapter, and the story is far from over.